Mikhail Petrov, TASS Editor-in-Chief. Before asking the question, Mr. President, I would like to thank you. This year, TASS is celebrating 120 years. We're the oldest information agency of the country. This year, in August, you have signed a decree to award the Order of Honorable Labor to our institution, and I would like to thank you for this. This is a high evaluation of our work. Thank you. As for the question, I think it concerns everyone today, I guess. When, during the Great Patriotic War, TASS were relaying the information from the front, I think it happened the same way as our guys are now working in the special military operations zone. They're also worried about that. What is your take on the course of the special military operation that's been going on for 3 years now? Is the victory any closer now? Naturally, I have expected such questions. There are many of them. As for the incoming questions that were coming in the past days, and moreover, I would like to thank you for this. It gives us a chance to show what we're doing there, what's happening, and what our guys are doing at the line of engagement. You know, the servicemen that whom I talk to regularly, they're giving some souvenirs to me. They're giving me their shoulder patches and so on. There's sometimes weapons as a souvenir. And quite recently, the servicemen of 155th Marine Brigade gave me a copy of the military flag, a banner. And we'd like to ask, can we ask someone to help? Could you please come up here? Yes, please. And someone on this side as well. So I have a request for you. Please stand over there, and you over here. And please unfold the banner. On the other way around. The Marines of the Pacific Fleet, I took it with me for a reason. Number one, I wanted to thank the guys for this gift. Second, let's think that this is 155th Marine Brigade. Represents all military banners of our guys fighting right now for Russia, for the motherland, throughout the line of engagement. I have to say that the situation is changing drastically. You know it very well. I just wanted to confirm that. We see movement all along the front line every day. And as I have already said, it's not about moving 100 or 200 or 300 meters ahead. Our military men are regaining the territory by square kilometers every day. That's what I wanted to highlight. Why is it happening? First and foremost, throughout the last year, and this is a classic scenario of military warfare. First, the enemy is going at you, he's being defeated, he incurs losses in personnel and equipment, and then we start moving forward. That's what's happening. Warfare is complicated. Therefore, it's hard to think ahead and to foretell the future. But we are moving forward. And as I said, we're getting closer to solving our primary tasks that we have outlined at the beginning of the special military operation. As for our men and women in uniform, I will continue repeating that, because I have every reason to say that. They're acting as heroes. The capacity of our armed forces are increasing. Right now, we see the banner of 155th Brigade. It's fighting in the Kursk region. It's pushing the enemy away from our territory. They're not alone. 810th Pacific Fleet Brigade, 76th and 106th Division of paratroopers, the shooting regiment of the North Caucasus, the motorized brigade. Everyone is working there as a heroes. Right now, they're fighting, and let's wish all of them, everyone who is fighting in the Kursk region, all along the line of engagement. We wish them good luck, victory, and for them to return home safely.
Mr. President, you have recently signed the amendments to the nuclear doctrine. Do you think the signal has been received and understood in the West? I don't know. You should ask them. I know what the amendments are. The doctrine is not new, but the amendments are somewhat new. I'll tell you about the key changes. We talk about the new emerging military threats that can turn into military threats, like the emergence of anti-missile systems and several other factors, and they're all named in the doctrine. We also speak about raising the responsibility of non-nuclear states that might participate in an aggression against the Russian Federation, together with those countries that are in possession of nuclear weapons. And if these countries, just like their allies, create any threat to Russia's sovereignty or to the very existence of Russia, then we believe we have the right to use our nuclear weapons against them. And there is another component, which is also related to managing our military arsenal. The fourth thing, we have made an announcement. We've made an announcement that if similar threats are created to our allies, to the member of the Union State of Russia and Belarus, to Belarus namely, then Russia is going to view that in the same light as creating similar threats to Russia. So we're going to do everything in our power to ensure Belarus's security. This is something we're doing in coordination and with the consent in coordination with and with the consent of the President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. And I think this is a very important component of Russia's updated nuclear doctrine. Konstantin Oreshnik, Zvezda TV channel. I have to ask you about the statements we've been hearing from you over the last several weeks. You spoke about the first military test of Oreshnik. It seems as if it is a perfect weapon, even though in the West it's still dubbed as a modification of an old Soviet missile, saying that the air defense system can bring it down even at the moment of launch. Can you comment on that? And what about the sense behind the name of this Oreshnik? Because there are different theories as to why it received this name. First, whether that is an old weapon or new weaponry, it's a cutting-edge type of weapon. Of course, anything that is being done anywhere is based upon previous achievements, and then we make a step forward. And the same thing applies to Oreshnik. Yes, there were certain developments in the past, some of them dating back to the new Russian history, and based on that groundwork, our researchers and scientists have been thinking what else they can do. They talked to the client, namely the defense ministry, and it was even brought up to my level, and I weighed in on the final decision on whether this new missile has to be produced and in what volume. This is new weaponry, short range and intermediate range missile. You said that several experts in the West believe that it can be easily intercepted and destroyed, especially at the moment of launch. What can I say to these experts? The thing is, there are different types of air defense systems, because you should know that there are Patriot air defense systems, which there are also THAD systems. I don't know whether they have those in Ukraine. Maybe if Americans want, they can supply those systems. Let them. It's similar to our S-400, whereas the Patriot is more or less like S-300, whereas this new one, high altitude air defense system, is more or less like S-400. Let them do that, and we'll ask our guys in Ukraine to find some good solutions. Well, when I say our guys, I say that without irony, because there are those we can talk to in Ukraine, because there are many people in Ukraine who are dreaming of ridding their country of this neo-Nazi regime. But the thing is, THAD is basically an anti-missile system, and for many years before we had been asking the Americans not to deploy those systems, otherwise we would have to find systems that would allow us to penetrate those systems. You know, we had to come up with the Vanguard system, which is kind of a cruise missile which follows the landscape without going too high. So basically all of that is only leading to new expenses, especially for American taxpayers, without giving anything in return. That said, this system has been developed and deployed. There are 2 positions in Romania and in Poland, and there are 24 anti-missiles deployed there. I think they're called Standard 3. In Romania, it's the 1B modification with a 300-kilometer range, and it can intercept missiles at 80 to 250 kilometers of altitude. In Poland, there is a newer modification. It can intercept as far as 1,000 kilometers and at the altitude of up to 500 kilometers, whereas Oreshnik is an intermediate range missile, and it's 1,000 up to 5,500 kilometers. That's the range of Oreshnik. Now, just imagine, our system is deployed 2,000 kilometers away. Even if the anti-missile is deployed in Poland, it's not going to be able to intercept. They say that the missile is very vulnerable at the launching stage, but they won't be able to intercept those missiles so far. Moreover, the launching sites are protected. Moreover, it takes time for the anti-missile to get to the missile, but it takes several seconds, and then it's too late to catch or to intercept it. So there is, before the separation, so there is no chance that the missile is going to be brought down by the anti-missiles. So if the experts in the West think so, well, let them come up with a proposal to us and to the US. They can suggest kind of a technological experiment, kind of a high-tech fighting duel of the 21st century. They can designate a target, say in Kiev. They can concentrate all of their air defense and anti-missile defense there, and we will strike it with Oreshnik, and we'll see what's going to happen. We are willing to conduct such an experiment. What about the other side? Are they ready? Well, we understand all of their anti-missile and anti-air defense systems are on high alert, they're ready. But, you know, what I've just told you is what I have learned from our engineers, from our scientists. And of course, the American political leadership also get their information from their experts. So let's conduct this duel and look at the outcome. It's going to be interesting because it's going to be useful both to us and to the American side.
My question is, are you prepared to compromise in any way over Ukraine? You say that Kyiv should compromise, that the Ukrainians should compromise, but what are you prepared to offer in potential negotiations, potentially led by President-elect Trump?
Frankly speaking, I haven't seen President Assad yet, after he came to Moscow, but I plan to do so, and I will have a conversation with him. We are adults, we understand. 12 years ago, a person went missing in Syria 12 years ago. We understand what situation was in place 12 years ago. Active hostilities were ongoing from both parts, from both sides. Does President Assad himself know what happened to that US citizen, to the journalist who performed his journalist duties in the combat area? But nonetheless, I do promise that I will ask this question to him.
We can ask the same question to those people who are controlling the situation on the ground in Syria today. You asked what we can offer, or I can offer, to the President-elect Trump when we meet. I do not know when we are going to meet, because he does not speak about that. I haven't spoken to him for more than 4 years now. I am prepared for that conversation at any time. I will be prepared to hold a meeting as well, if he so desires. You said that this conversation will take place where I'll be in a weakened state. Dear colleague, well, I'm saying dear and distinguished colleague, because though despite all persecutions of our media, Russian media, you are allowed to work here freely. Isn't that good already? To you and to the people who pay your salary in the United States, we'd really like for Russia to be in a weakened state. I'm of a different opinion. I think that Russia became much stronger over the past 2 or 3 years. Why? Because we are becoming a truly sovereign country. We are largely independent of any country. We're prepared to stand our own in terms of economy. As for the economic growth rate, I have already spoken. We're strengthening our defense capacity. Our combat readiness of the armed forces today, and I'm speaking very confidently here, is at the highest, is ranked the highest in the world. The same applies to our defense industry. We're increasing the production of everything that's necessary for the army and the fleet, both for today and for tomorrow. We're doing that very confidently, actively. The same cannot be said about our adversaries. We already spoke about the success of our armed forces. This happens largely due to the increase in production of defense industry, in the output of defense industry of Russia. As I have said, we're doing that confidently and in a streamlined fashion. I spoke about the movement forward of our army at the line of engagement. How is this achieved? It is achieved by the presence of equipment that I have already mentioned. Yes, indeed, almost all of NATO countries are fighting against us. We spoke about our inflation rate, but what's happening over there? One shell of 155 millimeters. It used to cost, a year ago, about 2,000 euro. Now it costs 8,000 euros. The price has increased fourfold. If the hostilities continue at the same tempo, not only 2% of the budget for defense, which was always done at the insistence of the President-elect Trump, will be enough for NATO countries. Even 3% won't be enough. The training, combat readiness. The morale of the Russian army is at such point right now that is unparalleled by any army in the world. Therefore, I believe that to a great extent, Russia today is in such a state that we have been trying to achieve. It has become stronger. It has become a truly sovereign country. And will make decisions without taking anyone's opinion into account, will follow only our national interests.
Now, to be frank, I have not met President Assad yet after his arrival to Moscow, but I have such plans. I will speak to him for sure.
You mentioned Syria. Well, you and those who pay your salary would like to present everything that's happening in Syria as a shortcoming or a defeat of Russia. I'd like to assure you that is not so. And I'll tell you why. We have come to Syria 10 years ago. So, in order to prevent the creation of a terroristic enclave, the likes of which we've seen in the other countries, for example, in Afghanistan, in general, we have achieved our goal. Even those groups that used to fight with the Assad regime, with the governmental forces, they have evolved as well. It is for a reason that today many European countries and the United States would like to establish relations with them. If they are a terrorist organization, how come you're trying to do that? Then that means that they have changed. That means that to a certain extent, our goal has been achieved. We did not have ground troops in Syria. They simply were not there. We have 2 military bases there, an air base and a naval base. The ground operation consisted of the troops of the Syria itself and of some, and it's an open secret, of certain pro-Iranian paramilitary forces. We have returned the troops of the Special Operation Forces. We have withdrawn them from there. But what was happening at the time? When the groups of armed opposition came close to Aleppo, Aleppo was defended by about 30,000 people. 350 fighters entered the city. The governmental troops, as well as so-called pro-Iranian units, have left the city without fighting. They've blown up their positions and just left. The same happened with some exemptions. There were some hostilities there, but the same happened all around Syria. Previously, our Iranian friends used to ask us to provide transportation for their units in Syria. Now they've asked to withdraw their units. We have transported out 4,000 Iranian fighters to Tehran from Khmeimim base. A part of so-called pro-Iranian units left without fighting to Lebanon, part of them to Iraq. Today, the situation is quite complicated, if we're talking about Syria. We expect and hope that the peace and calm will come there. We have established relations with all groups that control the situation on the ground and with all countries in the region. And the majority of them are telling us that they have an interest for our military bases in Syria to remain in place. We need to think about it because we need to decide for ourselves what will be the relations, our relations with those forces that are controlling the situation right now and who are going to control it in the future. Our interests should coincide. If we are to stay there, we must be doing something in the interest of the side who's doing there. What would be such interest? What could we do for them? This is a question that requires accurate and painstaking working through. But now, even now, we can do something using these bases as well. And we have proposed that to our partners already. Those partners who are on the territory of Syria and in the neighboring countries. We have proposed that we can use the airbase of Khmeimim to deliver humanitarian aid to Syria. This was accepted with an understanding and with a desire to organize this joint work. The same applies to the Tartus naval base. Whoever would like to present Russia as weakened, and as you're an American, I would like to remind you of a well-known writer and a person who said at a certain time, "The rumors of my death are much exaggerated."
Mr. President, good day. My name is Juan He. I represent Xinhua News Agency. So glad to ask a question today, to be able to ask a question. I have two questions. The first one, what is your take on the current state of the development of the Chinese-Russian relations? Will you tell us about the main outcomes of the cooperation between our countries? And my second question, next year, China and Russia will mark 80th anniversary of the victory in World War II, and 80th anniversary since the United Nations were founded. According to your opinion, what is the role of interaction and coordination between China and Russia in maintaining global strategic stability and international justice? Thank you very much. Well, we speak a lot about the bilateral interaction of China and Russia. Next year will mark 75th anniversary since the diplomatic ties were established. Over the past years, a lot happened, and we've gone through a lot together. And in the recent decades, the level and the standards, the quality of our relations have reached an unprecedented level, and we've never seen in our history before. I'll mention the economic component, but this is built on mutual trust and confidence. All that we do and the way we act is built upon full trust and confidence on both sides. We do nothing that would run counter to our interests, and we have been acting in the interests of the Chinese people and the Russian people. And as regards economic interaction, well, we have 220, 230, or even 40, according to the Chinese statistics, of billion USD of mutual trade, which is very good. Over the past year, despite the high base, we still have seen a moderate pace of growth of about 3%. And my second point is about investments. We have around 600 projects of mutual investments to the tune of $200 billion, so which means that our future interaction is safeguarded. And another important component is cultural and humanitarian interaction. We hold dual years of culture and youth exchanges that are very important for specific cohorts of our population. And this is the foundation for economic and political interaction. Also, our regional interaction is of significance. Heads of regions speak to one another. And Malta and vodka is on the table, but, you know, they know the happy medium. They don't overkill, so they have some personal chemistry. I mean the residents of the regions, neighboring regions, and student and the university exchanges also take place. Then, mentioning the great patriotic war, Russia and China were the countries that suffered most during the Second World War, but still gained a victory. So the casualties were colossal. We lost 25 or 27 million people, and China lost even more, around 30 million people in casualties. So the things that the Japanese militarists did on Chinese land were horrendous, and the Chinese people went through that ordeal, and we stood side by side then, and we stand side by side now, which is a most important factor of global stability. And originally, the United Nations was established for the sake of this stability, and the Permanent Security Council members include Russia and China, and we almost always coordinate our approaches on international arena. And definitely this is a very important pillar of international affairs, so we'll keep acting in this vein. Please convey my best wishes to the leader of the People's Republic of China, a person whom I believe to be my personal friend.
A question about the assassination of General Kirillov. Okay, you said it was an attempt. Thank you for saying this, because indirectly you admitted that it was a terrorist attack. Why is that? Because this assassination was carried out in the way that is dangerous for many other people. The Kiev regime were carrying out such attacks against many people, like now in Kursk, where they are attacking, implementing strikes against civilians, and they were killing journalists, your colleagues. They were carrying out terrorist attacks against journalists. We have never once heard, I don't mean you personally, but I mean the Western media. We have never heard condemnation for such terrorist attacks. So thank you for mentioning this now. A question about the assassination of General Kirillov. Okay, you said it was an attempt. Thank you for saying this, because indirectly you admitted that it was a terrorist attack. Why is that? Because this assassination was carried out in the way that is dangerous for many other people. The Kiev regime were carrying out such attacks against many people, like now in Kursk, where they are attacking, implementing strikes against civilians, and they were killing journalists, your colleagues. They were carrying out terrorist attacks against journalists. We have never once heard, I don't mean you personally, but I mean the Western media. We have never heard condemnation for such terrorist attacks. So thank you for mentioning this now.
So my question is, this year will be 45 years of my life as a journalist, and unfortunately I can see that written journalism is dying. Maybe Vlad Bumaga could help newspapers, independent newspapers that are independent from the state, from business people, and only depend on their readers. What can we do to make sure that weekly written print newspapers can survive? And my second question is something that I've asked a lot of people, including Ms. Zakharova. She told me that I should go ask this question to you. A lot of our scientists, people who look into the future, they say that in the next 10 to 15 years, countries of Europe, the United States, and in fact, the American continent itself could go underwater, but people will migrate to our land. Maybe we should warn them before. This is a hypothetical scenario, but there are scenarios that say that that will happen, and that is what they say in newspapers, not on Telegram channels. So these are the two questions I have to you. I don't know if I should even tell you about it. You know that joke that a family sits at a table and a little boy asks, he's solving a crossword, so a word, 3 letters. Mom just smacks him with a spoon on his forehead, but she says, well, this is very innocent word there, and so we need to think about your house, about your people. You're saying that continents are going to go underwater, but we need to think about our home. But you say that people are going to run to Russia. Well, let me finish what I was trying to say. The estimations that you spoke about, they are real scientists making real analysis. They're talking about permafrost and glaciers melting, and because of that, more CO2 will be coming into the atmosphere than anything that's produced by humanity. And if that happens, then some of Russia's regions closer to the oceans, to the seas, will also be underwater. We have entire towns and communities that exist in permafrost areas that will be in serious trouble. Or take St. Petersburg, for example. We need to think about what could happen to cities like that. So we need to think about our own home, about our own land. If anyone tries to migrate to Russia as a result, we have 2.3% unemployment. So we're talking about labor migration and issues that could arise out of that. But of course, we need to think about what we could do to address that if that happens, if that does happen. But Russia is the largest country in the world in terms of territory. And on the other side of the Ural Mountains, only 12 million people live. So we got lots of territory. But we need to think ahead of time about infrastructure, about the social issues, about rules that we'll need to create. I know you've been presenting all of that as a very curious, strange, weird scenario, but this may be real eventually, and we need to address real problems. Now, your question about journalism and Vlad Bumaga and other young bloggers, and your question was about printed media. Now, my personal opinion is that print media is something that will have its place, its niche in the changing world. The same as print books still exists. Because you can use like a tablet or some other device to read books, and even I do that sometimes myself, but actually holding a real book, paper book in your hand is very different, even though it has, well, it may have illustrations, which is also a work of art, but apart from that, it's very different. And so print media, take Investia or Komsomolskaya Pravda, take a newspaper in your hands. There is a special kind of amazing feeling that you get from holding a real thing in your hand, a print media in your hand. And I think that the public still has interest in print media, and of course content is what matters, and regardless of the media itself, the content is what matters. And so as long as print media have reliable, good content, it's not going to go anywhere.
Don't miss out. Log on to oneindia.com for more updates.